It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you to today's program, Lest We Forget the July Revolution. Today's program has been graced by the kind presence of Mr. Volker Türk, United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights. The United Nations Human Rights Commission, which is headed by the High Commissioner for Human Rights, is the preeminent UN body dedicated to human rights. It stands in solidarity with all people everywhere in its shared mission to uphold and advance the broad spectrum of rights and freedoms guaranteed by the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Ever since Mr. Türk took up his official functions as High Commissioner on 17th October 2022, he has been relentlessly pursuing the purpose of global peace through ensuring human rights. Mr. Türk has devoted his extensive and illustrious career to the preservation of universal human rights, particularly the international protection of some of the world's most vulnerable people, refugees, and stateless persons. His presence here today is a reflection of that very commitment and sincerity to the cause of universal human rights. We are thankful eternally. We express our heartfelt gratitude to Professor Niaz Ahmed Khan, PhD, the Vice Chancellor of the University of Dhaka, for his presence at today's program. We are also thankful to have Dr. Saima Haq Bidisha, Pro-Vice Chancellor Administration, Professor Dr. Mamoon Ahmed, the Pro-Vice Chancellor Academic, Professor M. Jahangir Alam Chowdhury, PhD, Treasurer of the University, and Saifuddin Ahmed, Proctor of the University of Dhaka, amidst us today. We express our earnest gratitude to Huma Khan, Senior Human Rights Advisor of the UN, Ms. Gwen Lewis, Resident Coordination of the UN, and other respected dignitaries of the UN and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for adorning today's program. Also among us will be present Mahfouz Alam, who needs no introduction to the students here today. He's one of the most prominent architects and a highly dynamic and active leader and coordinator of the July Revolution. He'll be present amongst us shortly. Before commencing our program, may we rise and remember and honor the valiant martyrs of the July Revolution by observing 1 minute of silence. Thank you, everyone. We may have our seats. What an extraordinary month July was. July redefined the lives of Bangladeshis and itself took a new meaning. 36 days of July, as you called it, brought forth for us a new beginning on 5th August 2024. And it is you who have made it possible. Today, under this one roof, students from public, private, 7 affiliated colleges, madrasa, and some student platform representatives have come together to share their experiences and thoughts during the July Revolution. So, to hear from you will fill us with joy and hope. At the outset of the program, may I humbly request Vice Chancellor of the University of Dhaka, Professor Niaz Ahmed Khan, PhD, to kindly deliver his welcome speech. Sir, would you do the honors?
Good afternoon, everyone. Dr. VOLKER TÜRK and his entourage, the UN delegation, UN Res Corps and her team, our senior officials from MOFA, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, my colleagues in Dhaka University in administration and in faculty, my dear students, volunteers, and all of us who have joined us today in a very short notice. I thank all of you. This is truly an occasion that we have been looking forward to. July has changed our lives in many ways. At the aftermath of the revolution, Dhaka University being the epicenter of the revolution, we have had new experiences. It's a volatile time, and people have contributed in their many different ways to bring in a level of stability and peace. And we now look forward to continue this dialogue and discussion. And this is so pivotal to have this continued interaction among all quarters who have made this revolution possible. Sustainability is now the new challenge. We are truly happy to be partnering with the UN and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in organizing this event. As I said, this has brought together a diverse range of students and professionals, has given us the opportunity to bring the theory and practice together. Let me take just a couple of minutes to give you just an idea about some of the things the University of Dhaka has been pursuing on all of our behalf. As you know, we consider this university to be the Citizens University. In Bangla, we call it Sharbo Janotar Vishwavidyalaya. And we truly mean this. We have put in place a fact-finding mission in our own modest ways and means to actually look onto the atrocities happened during the revolution, and we are looking forward to the recommendations very soon of the mission. We have made it a point to regularly organize events commemorating this huge turning point in the history of Bangladesh. Conferences, both national and international, have been lined up. We have got a good collection of historical photographs and graffitis. We have tried out the process of including some of these ideas as case studies into our curricula. So pedagogical efforts are on the way so that we could actually have a way to embed some of these experiences into our education system. We are organizing what we call a commemorative corner, okay, at the people who are very familiar with the Dhaka University premises, and most of you are, at our Daksu building, where we are trying to bring together various artifacts and photographs and other items in order to mainly serve as a point of reference both for academic and practicing purposes. We have also been partnering with the UN in our own modest ways and means. The precursor mission, which followed and created the basic context for today's meeting, and of course the visit by His Excellency Dr. Türk, we have had several rounds of discussions and interactions with the mission. And again, I remain deeply thankful to the role played by my good friends at MOFA. They've been facilitating this visit. Our students have always been forthcoming with any initiative that we took in terms of commemorating this turning point in our history. Dhaka University has been, I don't want to sound too big about these things, but just as a matter of fact, it has been truly the epicenter of the revolution. And given our limited means, I think it's important to acknowledge our limitation. This is a national responsibility that we need to uphold the very sanctity of this revolution, and would be looking forward to help and support from any and all of our stakeholders. Dhaka University remains committed to support any cause of upholding the basic values of human rights. This revolution in itself actually portrays the human rights, the cause of human rights. Thank you once again for your kind presence and time. I hope this is beginning of a much larger partnership between us in order to further the cause of human rights in this country and beyond. Thank you once again, and I hope you will take time to, after the meeting, to have a quick stroll in the Dhaka University campus. And I know that His Excellency has actually had some quick stroll, but I would invite all of you to kindly do so. And as I said, let this be the beginning of a much wider partnership between us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your excellent speech. It is under your able leadership that the University of Dhaka hopes and strives to advance and thrive in the global academic arena. Now, the most awaiting moment. It is my honor to request Mr. VOLKER TÜRK to deliver his speech for us. Sir, would you do the honors?
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Really great to be here, Mr. Vice Chancellor, dear students, dear colleagues, dear friends. The students and the faculty of the Dhaka University, you have a long, rich history of activism, mobilizing powerfully over the past 80 years for independence, for freedom of expression and language rights, for equal representation, and against military rule. And now you have added on activism for democracy, accountability, and equality. As your distinguished professor Sirajul Islam Chowdhury once observed, this university has encouraged people to not only dream about freedom and equality, but to take action to move that dream closer to reality. Together with other students, you have mentioned it, from both private and public universities, from madrasas, from colleges and schools, together with people from across the country, you have shown great courage in standing up for justice and equality for the people of Bangladesh. So I'm truly honored to be speaking here today at a pivotal time and in a symbolic place. And I'm humbled and inspired by your stories of bravery, resilience, solidarity, and commitment to human rights. I've followed this over the last couple of months very carefully, and I've followed not only the developments, but also the testimonies over the last couple of, in fact today, of some of you who've told me what happened. Students helping injured demonstrators, rickshaw drivers risking their lives to assist the protesters, women leaders who broke the locks on their dormitories, shattered stereotypes, took to the streets to protest, and inspired millions. I also want to recognize the terrible price paid by many protesters and bystanders, including your friends and classmates, who were killed or seriously wounded. Many will be left with long-term disabilities. Hundreds were hit in the head and eyes, including by pellets, and might lose vision forever. Many are still undergoing treatment, and I wish them all a swift and complete recovery. Our presence here today, marking a new beginning for Bangladesh, is a testament to their courage and a memorial to their sacrifice. Dear students, as a university student myself in Austria many years ago, I won't tell you how long ago, I learned how human rights could transform societies for the better. This simple but powerful idea has guided my life, my career ever since, and it strongly resonates with me here today. We live in troubling times, when conflicts rage all around the world more than ever before, when international law is abused, when human rights are trampled, and our world is more unequal than ever before. Too often, our economies prioritize profit over people and planet. And polarization and corruption are combining with rampant disinformation to weaken democracy globally. Young people everywhere are facing a tumultuous world filled with deepening inequality and ongoing economic crisis and uncertainty. Your present and future are being threatened by climate chaos, by pollution that is becoming more destructive and ferocious every day. In Bangladesh, you know this better than most. For much of your lives, destructive and corrupt politics entrenched an economy of inequality, irrespective of who was in charge. Political opposition, civic dissent, and peaceful protest were suppressed, often violently. Atrocious violations like extrajudicial killings, enforced disappearances, arbitrary arrests and detentions and torture were met with denial and impunity. Prosperity, opportunity, decision-making, and equality were off limits for many people. And young people yourselves struggled in specific ways. Many of you were marginalized, disenfranchised, without access to quality education and jobs. But earlier this year, you seized this moment to put your country on a different pathway. Bangladesh now has an historic opportunity to renew and revitalize a genuine democracy, to deliver deep reform, to start a process of truth, justice, and healing, to ensure that the benefits of development are enjoyed by all people, and to rebuild your country on a foundation of equality where every voice is heard and valued, irrespective of class, gender, race, political ideology, or religion. And it is young people who have led that way. This is emblematic of a truth I see all around the world. While global leaders play politics with your future, young people are showing true leadership. Everywhere they are standing up for climate justice, action, and human rights. Like you, they give me hope for the future. Dear students, democracy is one of the most powerful ideas ever dreamed up by humanity. It has spurred people to act for 2,500 years. But it is also fragile, something that we must nurture and protect, particularly in its earliest stages. I know you're all focused on that task, and I know that you are aware of the pitfalls that led other pro-democracy movements into a dead end. Human rights and the rule of law can be your roadmap and the compass as you navigate the path from the violence of the recent past towards a new society and future. Human rights provide understanding and clarity. They represent a vehicle for empowerment, unlocking the freedoms we are all entitled to. They provide a governance model that ensures development is underpinned by inclusion, by participation, by accountability. They can provide a guarantee of non-recurrence, that such abuse of power should never happen again. What does this mean for Bangladesh today? It is obviously for Bangladeshis to decide, but let me offer a few observations. First, a human rights approach calls for truth, justice, and healing for recent events and past human rights violations. These are the vital building blocks of just societies. Without healing, the legacy of violence is simply more violence and more victims. We cannot allow a vicious cycle of reprisals and revenge to repeat itself. Take inspiration from role models such as Nelson Mandela. The pursuit of justice must also go beyond trials of those responsible and address the root causes to achieve the broader social transformation to which you aspire. We need to look forward, not only backwards. Such an approach should begin with a broad-based national dialogue to design a pathway towards truth, reconciliation, accountability, and reparation, but also national healing. It must be inclusive and centered on survivors and victims. Let me also stress that the psychosocial support is crucial following the trauma that many of you and your loved ones, your fellow students have experienced, and I will be urging the international community to support you in this healing process. Second, at a broader level, Bangladesh has an important opportunity to confront long-standing human rights violations, rebuild an open, diverse, and tolerant civic space, and reform key state institutions. This is essential to rebuild social cohesion, to restore trust in institutions, and ensure that abuse of power can never happen again. A human rights approach requires examination, abolition, and reform of repressive laws and institutions that stifle dissent. It means questioning whether punishments like the death penalty will help to take a society forward. As you can imagine, as High Commissioner, I'm firmly against the death penalty and will continue advocating for its abolition here in this country and elsewhere, and that's based on evidence. And a human rights approach requires an open environment for journalists, for trade unionists, for civil society activists, and other human rights defenders to work freely and independently. As student activists, you represent a new generation of human rights defenders to stand up for the values and principles that are inherent in human rights. I would like to stress that how you go about this is equally important. Beware of the idea that the ends justify the means. The process through which you seek change is just as crucial as the outcome. Strengthening institutions can be more important in the long term than tearing them down. A state cannot function without strong and independent institutions that are anchored in human rights. This will take time. Creating a wider and more diverse civic space requires an inclusive approach, protecting minority groups, including Hindus, Christians, Buddhists, and indigenous communities, and ensuring their full and meaningful participation in decision-making. This diversity enriches society and enables all to benefit from different experiences and perspectives. Women played a frontline role in the pro-democracy protests and in the strategizing and organizing that preceded them. This was also a struggle for gender equality and to end discrimination against women and girls. They must have full and meaningful representation, including in leadership roles now and in the future. Third, human rights should underpin the democratic process. Bangladesh will have to grapple with decades of divisive politics that have not served its people too well. A human rights approach calls for a level playing field that enables all political parties to participate freely. Citizens must be able to participate in democratic governance and have a real say in decision-making. Free and fair elections require an environment where freedom of expression, association, and peaceful assembly are respected. Fourth, this is an opportunity for inclusive, sustainable development policies that benefit everyone. Bangladesh has one of the fastest growing economies in the world, but economic growth has been uneven, and the benefits have been concentrated among a small segment of society, resulting in high levels of inequality and even oppression. The 2030 Agenda and the Sustainable Development Goals are a comprehensive and rights-based to-do list. A human rights economy calls for policies that put people and planet at the center. It means greater investment in poverty reduction, social protection, health care, education, and decent work. Education should be independent, high quality, and accessible to all. And economic policies must prioritize the well-being of the poor, the marginalized, and the vulnerable. Diversifying the economy can help ensure growth benefits of all of society. Labor laws and practices need to put labor standards and the protection of workers' rights, including the rights of workers in the informal economy, at the center. We also need to ensure non-discrimination and opportunities for all. Human rights approach also requires action to root out and prevent corruption and cronyism and oligopolies, and ensure that public finances are managed transparently. Dear students, my final message to you is that you are not alone. We have been inspired by the courage and the sacrifice of your struggle. This is your journey, and we are here to accompany and support you on the way. My office is ready to play its part, starting with the fact-finding mission that is already underway, and I will be discussing with the interim government areas where we can support on institution building, on rebuilding civic space, on accountability and healing processes from a human rights perspective. I look forward to hearing from you about your concerns and challenges and how we can best support you to play a full part in the future of your country. As I drove through the city today, I saw a whirlwind of dynamism and ingenuity alongside very powerful graffiti with messages of hope, unity, peace, and solidarity. Bangladesh is a rich tapestry of promise, of culture and creativity. It's full of potential and ideas and justifiable demands for a better present and a brighter future. To realize that potential, Bangladesh must draw a clear line in the sand. Inequality, cycles of revenge and retribution, marginalization, corruption, and gross human rights violations must be consigned to the past. There must be no repetition, no going back. The present and future belong to equality and justice. I take inspiration from your commitment to democracy and human rights. Keep it at the forefront of your struggles and lives. I stand together with all of you as you look to build a more equal, more inclusive, and more just Bangladesh for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your remarkable words of encouragement and appreciation. Your messages of solidarity and world peace surely touch the hearts of our youth and certainly resonates with the essence and spirit of our July movement. Stepping into the much anticipated part of today's program, I have with me two remarkable female leaders of the July Revolution, the Biha Tabassum and Raunuk Jahan, and together we shall be moderating and conducting the exchange session.
Thank you, ma'am. At this part of our program, we'll be hearing from three of our student leaders regarding their experience during the movement, after which Mr. VOLKER TÜRK is willing to take a few questions from our end.
Therefore, I would like to cordially request all our students who are present here today to write down their questions in advance and then pass them over to our volunteers while the subsequent part of this program is being carried out. Please don't hesitate to use the language of your preference, as we have interpreters who will be doing the needful. And please note that you have 3 minutes to place your questions. As a result of time constraints, we will be only able to accommodate a total of 5 questions during the question and answer session. Nevertheless, we will make a sincere effort to address the most frequently asked questions that are represented in the questions that will be submitted.
May I now request Rizwan Ahmed Rifat from Dhaka University to share his experience with us.
Rifat, are you present? Can you please stand up? Rifat, you have 5 minutes to share your experience with all of us.
Thank you everyone present here. Assalamu alaikum. I am Rizwan Ahmed Rifat. I welcome you all to a new Bangladesh. As we speak today, we are being a part of history. Have we had ever imagined in the last 15 years we would be in the Dhaka University Senate building talking freely about human rights in Bangladesh? We did not. This generation Z, had broken the shackles of fascism and had made this kind of dialogue and meetings possible. Bangladesh, perhaps the world, has seen a phenomenon that is quite uncertain or unseen in the modern times. When have you seen death of more than 1,500 people, 1,500 unarmed protesters in a democratic country fighting for their rights only? We haven't seen that. And the international community should also emphasize on this inhuman and undignified act of a democratic government. We should not only focus on the political aspect of this revolution, rather, we should also discuss this on a criminal basis. This has been the trend of the past Awami League government over the 15 years. We have seen a mother of 2 being gang raped by the ruling party just because she had voted for the opposition party. In this very Dhaka University campuses, we have seen the residential halls being turned into prison cells, being turned into torture cells of the ruling party student wings. This has been the status of the students for the last 15 years. Once Dhaka University got independent from those torture centers, from those cadres of the Bangladesh Student League, Bangladesh was on the verge of independence. Bangladesh was on the verge of independence from fascism, from undignified acts of a citizen. We will also emphasize that these crimes needs to be addressed not only in Bangladesh but also by the international community. I call for a trial, a free trial, that will ensure the perpetrators of this gross human rights violation and also the crimes against humanity according to international standards of justice. I call for solidarity. I call for solidarity against fascism in all forms in every corner of the world. I call for solidarity for the people of Palestine. I call for solidarity for the people of Rohingya. I call for solidarity against fundamentalists in India. I call for solidarity so that never again tyrant like Sheikh Hasina can return to any corner of the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Rizwan, for sharing your experience with us. I would now request Shamoli Sultana Jedni from the University of Liberal Arts, Bangladesh, to deliver her notes for us.
আমি মনে করি মানবাধিকার ও বৈষম্যহীনতা একই সূত্রে
And but otherwise it's
Sure,
difficult
sure.
to see you. Yeah, thank you so much.
আমি মনে করি মানবাধিকার ও বৈষম্যহীনতা একই সূত্রে গাঁথা। সমাজে যখন বৈষম্য সৃষ্টি হয় তখন তা মানুষের মৌলিক অধিকারকে ক্ষুণ্ণ করে। 1948 সালে ইউনিভার্সাল ডিক্লারেশন অফ হিউম্যান রাইটসের নীতিগুলো পূর্ণাঙ্গ অনুসরণ সারা বিশ্বের কোথাও হচ্ছে না। মধ্যপ্রাচ্যে সাম্প্রতিক যুদ্ধে হাজার হাজার নিরীহ নারী, শিশু, বেসামরিক জনগণ নিহত হয়েছেন। লাখো লাখো মানুষ শরণার্থী হয়েছেন। সিরিয়া, ইয়েমেন, প্যালেস্তাইন সহ বিশ্বের বিভিন্ন প্রান্তে ক্ষমতার দ্বন্দ্ব, যুদ্ধ বিগ্রহ ও জাতিগত বিভেদের কারণে মানবতার চরম লঙ্ঘন ঘটছে। মানবতার এই চরম লঙ্ঘন তরুণদেরকে হতাশ করছে। আমরা আন্তর্জাতিক আদালতের মাধ্যমে সকল মানবতা বিরোধী সকল অপরাধের বিচার দাবি করছি। আমরা জাতিসংঘের বলিষ্ঠ ভূমিকার মাধ্যমে দ্রুত যুদ্ধবিরতি আশা করছি। আমাদের জুলাই বিপ্লব চলাকালীন হাজারো বেসামরিক জনগণ পুলিশের গুলিতে নিহত হয়েছেন। নির্বিচারে সাধারণ জনগণের উপর নিপীড়ন করা হয়েছে। ফ্যাসিস্ট হাসিনা সরকার আদলে মানবাধিকারের চরম লঙ্ঘন, গণহত্যা সংঘটিত হয়েছে। এ সময় আমরা দেখেছি ক্ষমতাসীন ফ্যাসিস্ট সরকার রাষ্ট্রীয় ব্যবস্থাকে জনগণের বিরুদ্ধে কাজে লাগিয়েছেন। আমরা আশা করি আমরা এমন একটি সংবিধান ও এমন একটি রাষ্ট্র কাঠামোতে পৌঁছাতে পারব যেখানে কেউ ক্ষমতার অপব্যবহার করে মানবাধিকার লঙ্ঘনের সুযোগ পাবে না এবং গণতন্ত্রের সঠিক বিকাশ হবে। জুলাই বিপ্লবে নারীদের অগ্রগণ্য ভূমিকা ছিল প্রথম থেকেই। কোটা বিরোধী আন্দোলন থেকে স্বৈরাচার পতনের আন্দোলনে নারীদের আত্মত্যাগ অবিস্মরণীয়। অনেক নারী প্রাণ হারিয়েছেন ও অসংখ্য নারী আহত হয়েছেন। আন্দোলনের প্রথম দিকে সরকারি বিশ্ববিদ্যালয়ের শিক্ষার্থীদের উপস্থিতি বেশি থাকলেও পরবর্তীতে দেশের বেসরকারি বিশ্ববিদ্যালয়ের নেতৃত্বে এবং সারা দেশের স্কুল, কলেজ ও মাদ্রাসার শিক্ষার্থীরা ন্যায়ের জন্য এগিয়ে আসে। তারা মাঠে নামার পরে এ জুলাই আন্দোলন, এ জুলাই বিপ্লব আরো তীব্র গতি পায়। তরুণরা ন্যায়ের জন্য জাতীয় একতা গড়তে চায়। এই বিপ্লবে তরুণদের ভূমিকা ছিল অবিস্মরণীয়। স্বাধীনতার দীর্ঘ 53 বছর পরেও বাংলাদেশের মানবাধিকার পরিস্থিতি সন্তোষজনক না থাকায় সমাজের সকল ক্ষেত্রে বৈষম্য সৃষ্টি হচ্ছে। আমরা এবং আমাদের বৈষম্য বিরোধী ছাত্র আন্দোলনের গড়ে ওঠা এই বৈষম্যগুলো নিরসনের জন্য, আর বৈষম্য নিরসনের মাধ্যমে মানুষের মৌলিক অধিকারগুলো নিশ্চিত করা সম্ভব হবে। জুলাই বিপ্লবে শহীদদের আত্মত্যাগ আমাদের নতুন বাংলাদেশ গড়ার সুযোগ দিয়েছে। আমরা এমন বাংলাদেশ চাই যেখানে মানুষের মত প্রকাশের পূর্ণ স্বাধীনতা থাকবে, রাজনৈতিক অধিকার রক্ষিত হবে, ধনী ও গরিবের মাঝে বিভেদের কোনো প্রাচীর থাকবে না। কিন্তু এই ফ্যাসিবাদী সরকার যখনই তাদের বিপরীতে কিছু দেখেছে তখনই জঙ্গি ও স্বাধীনতার অপশক্তি বলে খুন ও গুম করেছে। তারা শুধু জীবিতদেরই গুম করেনি, এমনও নজির রয়েছে তারা লাশও গুম করেছে। আমাদের নারীরা এখনো শিক্ষা, স্বাস্থ্য, অর্থনীতি, রাজনৈতিক ক্ষেত্রে নানা বৈষম্যের শিকার। বাংলাদেশের নারীরা যৌতুক, বাল্যবিবাহ ও পারিবারিক সহিংসতার শিকার হচ্ছেন। জিডিপিতে নারীদের অবদান সন্তোষজনক নয়। নারীদের প্রতি সমাজের দৃষ্টিভঙ্গির ইতিবাচক পরিবর্তন অত্যন্ত জরুরি। আমরা বাংলাদেশে 1979 সালে জাতিসংঘের কনভেনশন অন দ্য এলিমিনেশন অফ অল ফর্মস অফ ডিসক্রিমিনেশন অ্যাগেইনস্ট উইমেন এর আর্টিকেলগুলোর পূর্ণ বাস্তবায়ন চাই। ইউনাইটেড নেশনস কর্তৃক গৃহীত সাস্টেইনেবল ডেভেলপমেন্ট গোলস 17 এসডিজি এর অনুসারে রাষ্ট্রের বিভিন্ন কার্যক্রমে সমাজের সকল শ্রেণী পেশার মানুষের অংশগ্রহণের মাধ্যমে আমরা একটি ইনক্লুসিভ সোসাইটি চাই যেখানে কেউ পিছিয়ে থাকবে না। বৈষম্য নিরসন ও মানবাধিকার প্রতিষ্ঠায় প্রশাসনিক কাঠামোতে সংস্কার আমরা আশা করছি। ক্ষমতার বিকেন্দ্রীকরণ, স্থানীয় সরকারকে শক্তিশালী করা এবং সিভিল সার্ভিসের নিরপেক্ষতা আনা জরুরি বলে আমরা মনে করি। এই স্বপ্নের বাংলাদেশ গড়তে আমাদের রাষ্ট্রীয় কাঠামোগুলোর বিভিন্ন যৌক্তিক সংস্কার প্রয়োজন। অন্তর্বর্তী সরকার জনগণের সেই আশা আকাঙ্ক্ষার প্রতিফলনে কাজ করছে। আমরা বৈষম্য বিরোধী ছাত্র আন্দোলন রাষ্ট্র সংস্কারের যৌক্তিক দাবিগুলো সরকারের সামনে উপস্থাপন করার চেষ্টা করছি। আমরা এই সংস্কার কার্যক্রমের মাধ্যমে বৈষম্য দূরীকরণ ও মানবাধিকার প্রতিষ্ঠায় সাধারণ জনগণ, রাজনৈতিক দল ও সমাজের বিভিন্ন শ্রেণী পেশার গোষ্ঠীর অংশগ্রহণে জাতীয় ঐক্য আশা করছি। আমি শেষ করছি এই বলে, সবাই জুলাই বিপ্লবের স্পিরিট লালন করে দেশ গঠন ও সংস্কারের জন্য একসাথে কাজ করার প্রত্যাশা করছি। ধন্যবাদ সবাইকে।
Thank you, Shamuli. I now request Ashraf Mahdi from Al Azhar University to share his story with us.
Thanks for having me here. I am Ashraf Mahdi, former student of Lalbagh Madrasa, and now I'm a student of Islamic University of Kushtia. So I strongly agree with our honorable guest, VOLKER TÜRK, where he said Bangladesh has to fight with divisive politics for decades. And now, during the July Revolution, what we have seen here, that we actively broken all the binaries that has been there for the decades. So, because after 15 years of fascist regime, we figured this out, unity is the key of our success. And we made it finally. When the nation united for a better Bangladesh and we united on a dream of a new political settlement, 36th of July happened. We must recall and stand with solidarity for Palestinian Muslims when we talk about July Revolution, because after revolution, the advisor and one of our anti-discrimination student movement leader, Nahid Islam, said that this revolution was very much influenced by recent Free Palestine movement, where the violation of human rights and genocide has taken place. We have made a primary list of madrasa students who lost their lives during the revolution. We have identified 92 madrasa students. They remained overlooked as stakeholders, and particularly in social media narratives. Secondly, I must notice Indian Muslim citizens in my speech. In 2021, Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited Bangladesh. We condemned his visit as a citizen of Bangladesh, and we practiced our constitutional right, especially for his 2002 Gujarat riots. And not just that, one bigger concern was especially for the sake of Indian Muslims who have been increasingly oppressed by Hindu extremist leaders. As a consequence of peaceful demonstration, over 17 peaceful demonstrators were killed for exercising their constitutional rights. The leading organization, Hifazat Islam, saw many of its leaders arrested for many years without any political support and alignment. Finally, I want to address the beginning of the fascism that has taken place in this regime. The genocide of 2013, when madrasa student faced a brutal crackdown in Shapla. An international organization, Odhikar, made a list of 140 activists who were killed in that genocide, and electricity has been taken off, all the medias were shut down, and none of the activists and intellectuals raised their voices just because they were isolated and marginalized people. In 2013, for the first time, fascist establishment started taking places and his position in this country. Some of the prominent journalists and intellectuals like Farhad Mazhar and Mahmudur Rahman faced tragic consequences afterwards. Fascists became more stronger and set the binary and marginalized madrasa student. Most of them were traumatized for many years. Tragically, as a consequence for who talked, Odhikar Secretary Adilur Rahman and director A.S. Nasiruddin were sentenced to 2 years in prison in September 2023 for their efforts to bring attention to these injustices. In conclusion, why am I drawing this vicious picture? Because we can see hope now. We don't want any other political party to flip the coin and being another part of the fascist regime. We want July to bring us justice, and for all kind of injustice and discrimination, we want July unite us beyond all the binaries. Thank you.
Thank you, dear students. We would move on to the question-answer round now. It felt really ecstatic to listen to all of you, your thoughts, and I think that Mr. Türk also agrees with me that the experience that they have shared, the struggles during this entire month of July has changed the lives of these young people like forever. So they know how to see things differently, to gauge things differently, and to dream things differently. Having said so, we are opening the platform for question and answer session, and Jannatul will moderate from now on. We also have some questions here, and I will be calling on forth. Thank you.
Now I request Abdullah Ibn Hanif Aryan, student of University of Dhaka, to place his question. Your time is 2 minutes.
Thank you. First, I want to remember the martyrs and those injured in the Bangladesh Revolution for Independence 2.0. For their sacrifice, we are here discussing about human rights. We are all deeply aware of the recent genocide committed by the fascist government of Sheikh Hasina, resulting in over 1,600 deaths and 21,000 injuries during peaceful student protest for quota reform. What steps will the United Nations take to address these human rights violations and ensure accountability and justice? We urge the international community to support our struggle for justice and consider action against those responsible, including the global ban of Awami League and its allies, including countries like India that gave shelter, and tragically, the criminals are moving freely across the borders. We just can't do anything to them. How will UN respond to this?
Thank you, Abdullah. Now I request Cynthia Zahin Aisha, student of Begum Bodrunnesa Government Women's College, to place her question. Your time limit is 2 minutes.
আসসালামু আলাইকুম আমি প্রথমেই আমার কিছু অভিজ্ঞতা দিয়ে আসলে প্রশ্নটা শুরু করতে চাই আপনারা সবাই 24-এর গণঅভ্যুত্থানের ইতিহাস জানেন আমি সেই গণঅভ্যুত্থানের মধ্য থেকে আসসালামু আলাইকুম আমি আমার প্রশ্ন করার আগেই আমি আমার কিছু অভিজ্ঞতা এখানে শেয়ার করতে চাই আপনারা সবাই এখানে যারা উপস্থিত আছেন সবাই আমরা কম বেশি 24-এর অভ্যুত্থানকে প্রত্যক্ষ করেছি এবং দেখেছি ইতিহাসও জানি আমি বিশেষ করে এই অভ্যুত্থানের মধ্য থেকে 15ই জুলাই ঢাকা বিশ্ববিদ্যালয়ের ভিসি চত্বরে মেয়েদের উপরে যেই নির্মমভাবে আসলে নির্মমতা দেখানো হয়েছে যে নির্মম একটা চিত্র আমরা দেখেছি তাদের উপর যে ধরনের হামলা হয়েছে সেটার একটা অভিজ্ঞতা শেয়ার করি 15ই জুলাই আমরা আন্দোলনরত অবস্থায় ভিসি চত্বর থেকে একটা মিছিল নিয়ে যাচ্ছিলাম সেখানে ছাত্রলীগ যুবলীগ এবং
Cynthia, sorry to cut in. We're not sharing experience here like we've done. Please ask the question. Keep it short because there's a lot of other questions and we want to give scope to everyone here. Thank you.
Okay. 15ই জুলাই আসলে মেয়েদের উপরে যে ধরনের হামলা করা হয় আমিও সেই হামলার শিকার হই এবং সেখানে মেয়েদেরকে বাজেভাবে মলেস্টের শিকারও হতে হয়েছে আসলে এই ধরনের যে ন্যাক্কারজনক হামলা মেয়েদেরকে পিটিয়ে মাথা ফাটিয়ে দেওয়া এবং তাদেরকে নানাভাবে মলেস্ট করা, আসলে এটার জন্য আমাদের জাতিসংঘের মানবাধিকার কমিশন কী ধরনের ভূমিকা পালন করবে, সেটা প্রশ্ন আমার। এবং আমার দ্বিতীয় প্রশ্ন হচ্ছে, গাজার এক গণসংযোগ কার্যালয়ের এক প্রতিবেদনে বলা হয়েছে, গাজায় চলা ইসরায়েলের 385 দিনের আগ্রাসনে যে হত্যাকাণ্ড পরিচালিত হয় তার মধ্যে প্রায় মানে নিহত সংখ্যা হচ্ছে 42,885 জন, যার মধ্যে 40% হচ্ছে শিশু। এই ধরনের গণহত্যা বন্ধের জন্য জাতিসংঘের মানবাধিকার কমিশন কী পদক্ষেপ নিচ্ছে? আমার তৃতীয় প্রশ্ন, 25 আগস্ট 2017 সালে মিয়ানমারের সামরিক বাহিনী দ্বারা শুরু হওয়া গণহত্যা থেকে বাঁচতে 6,55,000 থেকে শুরু করে 7 লাখের মতো রোহিঙ্গা শরণার্থী বাংলাদেশে আশ্রয় নেয়। বর্তমানে কক্সবাজারে সব মিলিয়ে তাদের সংখ্যা 22 লাখ, এবং তাদের এই অবস্থানে তাদের রোহিঙ্গা শরণার্থী ক্যাম্পগুলোতে তাদের সুপেয় পানি, শিক্ষা ব্যবস্থা, চিকিৎসা এবং অন্যান্য নানাবিধ সমস্যা পরিলক্ষিত হচ্ছে। রোহিঙ্গাদের মিয়ানমারে পাঠাতে জাতিসংঘের মানবাধিকার কমিশন কী ভূমিকা রাখছে? ধন্যবাদ।
Thank you, Asha. Now I would request Rupaya Shrestha Tanchanga to place her question. Your time limit is 2 minutes.
Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests and distinguished Commissioner VOLKER TÜRK, today I stand before you to address the pressing issues that deeply concerns the indigenous community of the Chittagong Hill Tracts in Bangladesh. As an indigenous student, I want to uphold some problems of our Chittagong Hill Tracts. The indigenous people of the Chittagong Hill Tracts have faced systemic marginalization and discrimination for decades. Our land, culture, and identity are under constant threat from various forms of encroachment, including illegal settlements, deforestation, and militarization. These actions not only violate our rights, but also undermine the very fabric of our communities. Also, the government of Bangladesh never recognized us as indigenous people in Constitution, Article 6.2. Recently, we are very concerned about our existence when Chief Advisor of Bangladesh government said to Voice of America, we have nothing to do about CST, I mean Chittagong Hill Tracts. To address the problem of CST and to establish the rights of indigenous people in the region, I have a question that, do you have any plan to resolve the CST problem as per the Chowdhury Hill Tracts Accord? How can you play a positive role in establishing the rights of indigenous peoples in Chittagong Hill Tracts? Also, why does indigenous people have to take permission from military authority to buy daily groceries in Ruma, Bandarban? We urge Bangladesh government should implement CST Accord, stop the systematic and forcible displacement of indigenous people from their ancestral land. Thank you.
Thank you, Shrestha. Now I request Shombu Kor Shomo, student of University of Dhaka, to place his question. Your time limit is 2 minutes.
What is the name? Shomik. Can you use somebody else's mic? Use the mic right next to you, please, if yours is not working. In the meantime, those who have submitted questions here as well, I will be calling out your names. I hope you remember your questions so that when I call out your names, please place your questions. Thank you. And I'm sorry, there are a lot of questions, but we have a time constraint, so I'll be taking the common ones.
Thank you for having me there. Here I will recall the materials of July Revolution. We have seen a misconception roaming around that the religious minorities, especially Hindus, Buddhists, and Christians, have been safeguarded in the fascist regime, especially in Awami League regime. But our observation is in that Awami League regime, there has been lot of endowed properties and gravel land of minorities has been occurred by the local army leaders. And even though we have seen religious minorities has been used as political tools over the past 15 years as well as after the 1971 also. So how the international community are concerned about this specific issue? Thank you.
Thank you, Shambhu. Now I request Moinun Islam, student of Madrasa Aliyah Dhaka, to place his question. Your time limit is 2 minutes.
Turn on the mic, please.
আসসালামু আলাইকুম ওয়া রাহমাতুল্লাহি ওয়া বারাকাতুহু। আমি গভীর শ্রদ্ধার সাথে স্মরণ করছি 24-এর আন্দোলনের নতুন মুক্তিযোদ্ধাদের, যারা শাহাদত বরণের মাধ্যমে আমাদেরকে নতুন একটি বাংলাদেশ বিনির্মাণের সুযোগ করে দিয়েছেন। ডিয়ার অডিয়েন্স, আমি বলতে চাচ্ছি বাংলাদেশ দক্ষিণ এশিয়ার একটি মুসলিম মেজরিটি কান্ট্রি। এদেশের শিক্ষা সভ্যতা ও সংস্কৃতিতে ইসলাম অঙ্গাঙ্গিভাবে জড়িত। তারই ধারাবাহিকতায় জুলাই আগস্ট বিপ্লবে এদেশের মাদ্রাসা ছাত্রদের অংশগ্রহণ ও আত্মত্যাগ ছিল উল্লেখযোগ্য। এই আন্দোলনে লিস্টেড শতাধিক ছাত্র মাদ্রাসার ছাত্র শাহাদত বরণ করেন, কিন্তু জাতীয় বা আন্তর্জাতিক কোনো মিডিয়াতে মাদ্রাসা ছাত্রদের আত্মত্যাগ ও শাহাদতকে হাইলাইট করা হয়নি। আমার প্রশ্ন, জাতিসংঘের মানবাধিকার কমিশন এ বিষয়টিকে সামনে কিভাবে মূল্যায়ন করবেন? ডিয়ার অডিয়েন্স, বিগত 15 বছরে ফ্যাসিস্ট সরকারের আমলে সবচেয়ে বেশি বৈষম্য শিকার হয়েছে এদেশের আলেম সমাজ ও মাদ্রাসার ছাত্ররা। বিগত 15 বছরে অন্যায়ভাবে শতাধিক আলেম ও মাদ্রাসা ছাত্রদেরকে গ্রেফতার করে ফ্যাসিস্ট সরকারের আয়নাগর নামক জঘন্য কয়েদখানায় বন্দী করে। জাতিসংঘের মানবাধিকার কমিশন এ বিষয়টিকে সামনে কিভাবে মূল্যায়ন করবেন? ডিয়ার অডিয়েন্স, ফিলিস্তিনে মুসলিম জনগোষ্ঠীর উপর অন্যায়ভাবে ইসরায়েল হামলা চালিয়ে শত শত নারী ও শিশুসহ মুসলিম জনগণকে হত্যা করছে। আমার প্রশ্ন, জাতিসংঘের মানবাধিকার কমিশন এই বিষয়টিকে সামনে কিভাবে মূল্যায়ন করবেন এবং কি পদক্ষেপ নেবেন? ধন্যবাদ।
Thank you. I would request our interpreter to kindly interpret this in English, because as I have been informed, the devices are not working properly. These are? Okay. Then we can move on to the next question. Sabbatul Jannat from Economics Department of Dhaka University. Would you please stand up and place your question? Sabbatul? Oh, she just left. She did a very quick question, though. I'll pass it to you just to see. Next, I'll call Jannatul Ferdows Brishti from Dhaka University to place her question. Brishti, are you there? Okay, yeah.
Keeping my questions short and precise, I would like to know how can we deal any latent political radicalism in our new 2.0 Bangladesh? Thank you.
Okay, I'll be taking the questions all together and then we'll open the floor for Mr. Chark. The next question would be from Shaheen from Brack University. Shaheen from Brack University, are you here?
Well, it's Sakin from Brack
Oh,
University.
sorry, I'm extremely sorry for misreading your handwriting.
Well, I want to ask question in Bangla.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
আমার প্রশ্ন একটাই, সেটা হচ্ছে জুলাই বিপ্লবে ঢাকা ইউনিভার্সিটি যেভাবে সব কিছুতে এগিয়ে নিয়েছিল আমাদের প্রাইভেট বিশ্ববিদ্যালয়ের সাথে ছিল, 16 তারিখের পরে যখন ঢাকা ইউনিভার্সিটির হলগুলো বন্ধ হয়ে যায় তখন কিন্তু অনেকে ভেবেছিল বাংলাদেশের জনগণ যে বিপ্লব হয়তো বা থেমে যাবে, রেভলিউশনটা হবে না, কিন্তু প্রাইভেট ইউনিভার্সিটির স্টুডেন্ট এবং মাদ্রাসার এবং আমাদের অন্যান্য 7 কলেজের ভাই বোনেরা সবাই মিলে এই জিনিসটাকে সামনে এগিয়ে নিয়ে গিয়েছে এবং এই বিপ্লবটাকে ঘটিয়েছে। কিন্তু দুঃখের বিষয় হলো আমি আজ পর্যন্ত দেশ গঠনের কাজে কোনো প্রাইভেট ইউনিভার্সিটি স্টুডেন্টকে দেখলাম না, কোনো মাদ্রাসা স্টুডেন্টকে দেখলাম না, কোনো জায়গায় কাউকে দেখলাম না। সব জায়গায় শুধু ঢাকা ইউনিভার্সিটি। আমার ঢাকা ইউনিভার্সিটির কোনো কমপ্লেন নাই, কিন্তু আপনারা বৈষম্য কেন করতেছেন আমাদের সাথে? এখন সম্মানিত ইউনাইটেড নেশনের কাছে আমার একটাই প্রশ্ন, আপনি কি এই বিষয়ে কোনো কাজ করবেন নাকি আমরাই করব? ধন্যবাদ।
Should I proceed? No, no, no. Should I proceed? There are a few other questions. You'll be amazed how many questions are coming in. The next question would be from Zareen Anjum Tasneem from Law Department of University of Dhaka. Zareen, you're not audible. Can you please move closer to the mic? Thank you.
Hello, sir. My question is that Bangladesh has experienced a fragile for more than half a century. And every time the new government comes, they just throw a set of hopes to us and then just they become autocratic. And this is happening again and again. So how should we overcome this experience and what should be done to just that no government can be autocratic again and again? Thank you.
Okay, the next question is from Mohammad Yusuf, Dhaka Central College. I think you here?
আসসালামু আলাইকুম। তো আমার মূলত 3টা প্রশ্ন ছিল। প্রথম প্রশ্ন হচ্ছে, আমরা বর্ডার কিলিং সম্পর্কে সবাই জানি, তো আমাদের পার্শ্ববর্তী দেশ ইন্ডিয়া আমাদের যে মানে জনগণের উপর বর্ডারে কি পরিমাণ নির্মম আর কি পরিমাণ নির্দয় এর সাক্ষী কিন্তু আমরা সবাই। তো আমরা যদি এর উজ্জ্বল উদাহরণ দেখি, ফেলানি কিলিং সম্পর্কে আমরা সবাই জানি। আমি জানি না যে আজ পর্যন্ত ফেলানি তার বিচার পাইল কিনা। আমার জাতিসংঘের কাছে প্রথম প্রশ্ন হচ্ছে, বর্ডার কিলিং সম্পর্কে জাতিসংঘ বর্ডার কিলিংটাকে কিভাবে দেখে? আমার দ্বিতীয় প্রশ্ন হচ্ছে, আমাদের দেশে গণহত্যা চালানোর পর, আমাদের দেশে ফ্যাসিজম ছড়ানোর পর, আমাদের দেশটাকে ধ্বংস করে যারা এই দেশটাকে ধ্বংস করলো, যাদের হাত এখনো খুনে লাল, তারা বিভিন্ন বিদেশের বিভিন্ন কান্ট্রিতে তারা আশ্রয় নিল, পলাতক। তো তাদের ব্যাপারটা জাতিসংঘ কিভাবে দেখে? তাদেরকে কি নিরাপত্তা দিবে, না আমরা আমাদের বিচার পাবো? আমি শেষ কথাটা বলে আমি বসতে চাই। যেহেতু আমি আমাদের ইন্টারনাল বিষয় ভার্সিটির বিষয়টা আমি বলতে চাই নাই, তারপরেও আমি বলতেছি যে আমাদের আন্দোলন ছিল বৈষম্যের বিরুদ্ধে। তো বৈষম্যের বিরুদ্ধে আন্দোলনের পরও আপনারা প্রাইভেট বলতেছেন, পাবলিক বলতেছেন, মাদ্রাসা বলতেছেন, আমি খুবই খুশি। কিন্তু জাতীয় বিশ্ববিদ্যালয় নামে যে একটা বিশ্ববিদ্যালয় আছে, আর আমাদের সংখ্যা যে বাংলাদেশে 28 লাখ সংখ্যা আমাদের কোনো অস্তিত্ব আমি আন্দোলনের কোথাও, দেশ গঠনের কোথাও আমি দেখতেছি না। যে আমরা জাতীয় বিশ্ববিদ্যালয়ের ছাত্ররা কোথায়? আমরা কি ছিলাম না? ধন্যবাদ।
I think I'll take the floor to answer this because this is an internal question and Mr. Turk will not be able to relate with the question. I think your presence here says that we do not relate. We certainly missed it out maybe because this was a very suddenly, like a very impromptu kind of arrangement. So apologies from my end and from the organizers, but the very presence of yours in this gathering shows that we equally value all of you. I'm extremely sorry for offending. The last question I would take from Zabin Tasneem. Zabin, are you here? She's not here, but the question is a very good question. She is? Okay, yeah, nice.
Good noon, VOLKER TÜRK. My question is, do you think student politics is necessary at educational institution? And if you think yes, please explain your opinion. And if you think no, also explain your opinion. Thank you.
Okay, so I think we have got a lot of questions, and it will take some time for Mr. Türk to answer, if not all, maybe most of those. Yeah, so the floor is yours.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thanks for sharing with me your ideas, suggestions, also your feelings, and what you have also, your experiences. I'm not going to answer each and every question, but I will answer them. Do I need to be closer? No. I will answer them by giving you some important feedback, which I hope will answer your questions. The first one is actually the last question, because you asked, is student politics important in our lives? And I have to tell you, I mean, looking at the world today, not just here in Bangladesh, but all around the world, it is extremely important that young people know about history, know about facts, and know about politics. But politics, I have to say, that is anchored in human rights, and I will come to that in a minute. So I think it's absolutely critical, and we have seen this in all the universities around the world. Look at what's happening in the US about the debates that are going on the Gaza conflict. In fact, I had to make a press statement because there was an attempt to crack down, even through violent means, some of the discussions that were taking place there. So it is critical that universities, all universities, and let's not start with the divisiveness. It's all universities, be they madrasas, be they private ones, be they public ones, be they here in Bangladesh or anywhere else in the world, they all have to provide an open and free space for debate, for agreement, for disagreement, for creativity, and that's what universities are about. That's how I grew up, and that's what I cherished. And I hope you cherish the same, because that's the only way for us to address the big challenges of our times. We all need to find an open, free space where we can have a debate, where we can agree to disagree. It's also important not only to agree, but also to disagree, but we need to do it in a constructive, non-violent manner. That's also very important, because violence, as we know, there's too much violence in the world and it doesn't get us anywhere. So it's good that we have a space where we can have real discussions, where we also understand the point of view of someone else, the point of view of someone who is different from us. It's part of anything that we learn, and we can learn a lot, especially in student politics, through that. But I really urge you also to foster that space where debate, free, open, constructive debate can happen, which allows each and everyone to listen to the others, even if you don't agree with the other's point of view. But we need to respect the other point of view. That's the core of democracy. And I urge you to bear this in mind as you go into the next phase of your lives. The issue of, politics and democracy and what happened over the last, 50 years, it is critical to regain the promise of human rights with every generation, because we cannot take for granted the freedoms. I mean, you talked about women and the role of women and girls in the events here, and some have become more invisible over the last couple of weeks. So it's really important that the original promise of creating more freedoms really is a freedom for each and every one of you and the whole of Bangladesh. So human rights is radical because it protects each and everyone. It doesn't make an exception. Human rights is about the promise of freedoms for everyone. It doesn't make a distinction whether you belong to a certain group, whether you are a man or a woman, whether you belong to a minority group, or whether you belong to an indigenous group. But it also makes sure that there are special protections, particularly for those who are discriminated against. And that also has to be part of the debate, because it is about non-discrimination. Human rights is a promise of non-discrimination. Because as you know, in many countries there is too much of a distinction between those who have and the have-nots, between the poor, those who are in abject poverty, and those who get on with their lives and don't really care much about money. But frankly, we need to make sure that particularly economic policies, trade policies, development policies are geared towards those who are the most vulnerable, who are the most scapegoated in any society. And that is what is human rights about. It's reaching out to those who are particularly hard done by. And that's an incredibly important promise as well. You asked about, how does this fare with party politics? Party politics all around the world is in crisis. A lot of people say, and some of you even alluded to it as well, human rights in so many parts of the world is in crisis. Actually, it's not really human rights that are in crisis, it's the implementation of human rights that is in crisis, and it's political leadership that is in crisis. So for me, when I addressed the Human Rights Council in Geneva, and ahead of many elections this year, one of my strong messages was, if you look at political programs today, when you go to the next elections, and I asked all voters to do this, have a look at what the political programs do in terms of creating more freedoms and whether they are going to be implemented or not. So analyze political programs and political structures from a human rights perspective and make that the key point in how you analyze the world. I can tell you, things would be very different. I also, yes, there was the whole area, yeah, I think I answered this. Yes, let me come to some of those issues about the event, about what happened here. So as I mentioned also in my statement, I dispatched a fact-finding mission earlier this year, a couple of weeks ago, because at the request of the interim government, to look into the events of the last couple of months. And we are still working on that. It is important that it is part of the discussion, that it's part of justice, that it's part also of understanding better what happened, but also it's with a lot of recommendations that inform the police sector, the security sector, but also the judiciary. And it was very good for me to have a number of discussions with the different members of the interim administration precisely to look at some of those reforms. And we need to make sure that these reforms, again, are anchored in the incredible knowledge that human rights brings to the table. So I would really urge you, some of you mentioned the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, read that declaration, learn about it, and see how it translates into practice, because there is an incredible wealth of knowledge in there that can actually help you analyze and see the substance of reform, or of, if you like, a Bangladesh of the future. And again, there are lots of traditions in this country that you can build on. You have a very active, strong civil society movement over the last decades. Also look at history. I think it's important to bear in mind history as well, and see what this brings to the table in the current, very critical stance of your times. Indigenous people, I agree with you that in many parts of the world, including here, the rights of indigenous peoples need to be much more elevated. Within the intergovernmental system, for the first time, indigenous people, representatives of indigenous peoples can actually participate in the Intergovernmental Forum of the Human Rights Council, which is an important recognition. And it is particularly in the whole context of climate change and environmental degradation, we know how important it is to involve and meaningful participation of indigenous peoples, because very often it goes to land rights issues, and we have seen this in particular in the Americas, but also in other parts of the world, including here. And it's certainly part of how human rights have to be understood, also in relation to those who belong to indigenous communities. The same, by the way, for minority protection. Minority protection is not a question of who says what when. It's a question of a fundamental understanding of human rights. I mean, if someone is a citizen, it's clear that the civil, political, economic, social, cultural rights belong to everyone, but there are special protection measures for those who belong to minority groups because they need their language to be respected, they need their religion to be respected, they need to make sure that they are also accepted in their difference. And that's, again, what human rights asks us to do, because it's about freedom for everyone, but that freedom is differently defined depending on who you are and who you belong to. And we really need to understand that extremely well. You mentioned a couple of situations. And Gaza, which is a big worry of ours, I can tell you, you have probably seen certainly my statements, but also the statements of the United Nations. I have to tell you, we sometimes feel pretty hopeless, including with some of the decisions that have been taken, including today, one of the agencies, one of the UN agencies will no longer be UNRWA, the UN Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian Refugees will no longer be able to work, unfortunately, in the next couple of months, which is a big blow for especially humanitarian assistance. But I think, again, there are many, and it's important, the radical thinking around human rights is to pay attention to all crises, to wherever human rights violations occur. You mentioned also Rohingya, and that's important, and the whole human rights situation in Myanmar more generally because of what is happening there. And I know that a lot of you have expressed solidarity, which again is key, but let's not forget other situations as well, such as, for example, Sudan. The situation in Sudan, it was the first country I visited when I became High Commissioner, and I visited Sudan because I wanted to meet the people who undertook the revolution that happened and started in 2018. You probably know that the young people and women's groups managed to overthrow a 30-year-old military dictatorship. And I wanted to meet the people who were at the forefront of this. It's a bit similar to what I see here. Of course, you cannot compare the two situations, but there was a sentiment of we want a better Sudan, we want to build human rights, and there was not a question about human rights being Western. No, everyone embraced human rights because it was fundamentally about freedoms. Unfortunately, as you could see, in the meantime, Sudan is in a full-fledged war. It's because there are these two armies that fight each other in a horrible manner. And it also tells us a story for everyone. We need to be very careful about making sure that we pay attention to each and every situation around the world. None of you mentioned Ukraine, for example. I can tell you, in Ukraine, people suffer a lot. It's winter now. The infrastructure was pretty much destroyed. It's extremely cold. It's like for you during the height of the monsoon season, as if you did not have any possibility of electricity. That's what happens to people in Ukraine as we speak. So we really need human rights demands of us not to be only focused on one or the other situation. It demands of us, and again, it's very radical, it demands of us to pay attention to all of them and to do whatever we can to avert and mitigate these situations, including by providing support and by accompanying processes that have a real hope, as I mentioned before, for healing, for transitional justice, for accountability, and for also compensation for survivors and victims. Again, thank you very much for having had a chance to be with all here, and wishing you all the very best.
We sincerely appreciate Mr. Volker Türk's spontaneous and energetic participation in today's question-answer session. As we reach the end of our program, I would now humbly request Ms. Gwen, would you be kind enough to say a few words for our students? That would be great. Thank you. So, dear students, should I introduce you once again? So, I've just requested Ms. Gwen Lewis, resident coordinator of the UN, to kindly say a few words for us.
Thank you, Shireen. No, I haven't prepared any formal speech, but I just want to say a very, very big thank you to all of you for your leadership, for your courage, for your strength, and for being here today with us, because I think these type of conversations really demonstrate how people from across Bangladesh can come together and discuss and think about a better future for the country. I know all of my UN colleagues who are working with us here in Bangladesh are really keen to support you, to work with you, and to work with the interim government to do what we can to support what you have achieved. And I think a lot of the words you've spoken about is about the future of the country and where you'd like to see things go. So I think that's really important, and to keep our eyes and our thoughts to the future and how we can improve the lives of the people in this country. So thank you very much, and we stand in solidarity with all of you. And again, I think the world recognizes the courage and the leadership you've shown, and so you really are important voices across the world, not only in Bangladesh. So thank you.
Thank you so much. For the students, I would like to just remind you that I did receive a lot of questions today, and some has been also already answered. Some of you placed it up front, and those that has not been answered or maybe didn't get a chance to place in front of everyone, I have passed these on to Mr. Turk so that while he's going back to his hotel, he can look through the questions and maybe ponder upon the issues that our youth are really concerned about. And that's what we really want, for you to know what we are concerned about, what our youth is thinking, and how you can contribute to making human rights something very universal. This is another question. Having said so, we have reached the end of today's program. I would now humbly request Ms. Huma Khan, Senior Human Rights Advisor of the UN, to kindly deliver a closing speech on behalf of United Nations team in Bangladesh.
Thank you, Shireen. I think it's been 2 hours of a lot of reflection. I was here during July, August, and I've been here for nearly 4 years now. So a lot of what you said seemed like I've heard this before. Thank you for opening your hearts to us and giving us your time, because it's not easy to talk about your feelings to people that you don't know. So I want to thank everyone who was able to speak and share with us their feelings and their emotions. I want to thank Dhaka University for hosting us, allowing us this space on a very, very short notice. I want to thank everyone who came here to participate today, especially who are from outside Dhaka University, who made the effort to travel to Dhaka University to participate in this event. I'm really grateful for your time and your attention to this event. I'm also thankful to those who helped us organize this in 2 days, literally, because it was all finalized quite late. So volunteers of Students Against Discrimination who helped us, and people who are standing here, who having the badge to let everybody in. They worked quite hard in last 2 days, so thank you so much for your support to us. Just to say that this is the beginning. Some of you, there are friends in this room, and we have traveled together on this road to democracy, and I hope that we continue to travel together on this road to human rights and democracy. Many of you are not new to us, so we will keep in touch with you and see how we can be helpful and how we can complement what you're doing. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Huma. Unfortunately, Mahfouz Alam is not feeling well, so he was not able to join us today, and hence, and I would request, I would take the honor of requesting our proctor of the university, Saifuddin Ahmed, to kindly deliver his vote of thanks on behalf of Dhaka University and close the program. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Sherin. First of all, I would like to pay tribute to the martyrs of the July Revolution and great sympathy to the wounded people and salute to the revolutionist. So it is our great honor and pleasure to get here His Excellency Volker Türk here, and he share his experiences, and our students could ventilate their experiences. Thank you so much on behalf of Dhaka University. And I would like to again thank Gwen Lewis, the United Nations Resident Coordinator, to coordinate, and along with this Minister of Foreign Affairs, the officials and people came here to coordinate these issues, and consistently and continuously Ms. Huma Khan, Senior Human Rights Advisor, and Mr. Jahid Hussain, Human Rights Officer, was always keeping in touch with us to make this event successful. And I must recognize and remember my dear students, the volunteers who worked relentlessly for at least a week to make this event successful. And I would like to thank my colleagues, the assistant proctors, the professors here. They have been working for a lot, and not least, but at the last, my dear students. As Ms. Huma Khan mentioned, that most of the students travel all the way from different parts of the countries to show their eager and attention to this event, to portray their opinion, experiences to the His Excellency Volker Türk, and the officials of Dhaka University who extended their hands to and arrange this program in this nice hall. And thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, everyone. With that note, we end today's session. It was a rewarding session for all of us to be able to hear the experiences of everyone and to have Mr. Volker Türk amongst us. This happens quite rarely, so it's a special day for us. Dear students, please make a line while you leave the room, and will you please take 5 minutes while the delegation leave the room. You have some refreshments waiting for you outside the hall room, so make a line and receive your refreshments on your way out. Thank you so much for your vibrant presence. Thanks, everyone.
Welcome. নাইম থাকো, নাইম একসাথে যাবো আমরা।
Sakin Sabab Rock.